8 hours, 92 enemies, 1 soldier, 0 backup. They discovered her at dawn, sitting amid what had once been a battlefield, alone, unmoving, her rifle still radiating heat. Every enemy was gone. Not a single ally had come. No help, no reinforcements, just her, and a story that defied logic until someone looked close enough to realize everything they believed about war was a lie. They used to call her Crybaby by sunrise, but by dawn's first light, that name would mean something else entirely. Before we begin, tell us, where are you watching from? And if you still believe valor and courage deserve a place in this world, help keep their memory alive. 8 hours, 92 enemies, 1 soldier, 0 reinforcements. They mocked her as Crybaby. By sunrise, that word would tremble with respect. The radio hissed before daylight. Sergeant Miles O'Connor, KIA. Ava Marlowe froze mid-motion, a rag suspended in her grip. The man who once taught her to strip and rebuild a rifle blindfolded was gone. Her throat tightened, but she stayed perfectly still, the static fading into emptiness. Behind her came laughter. Crybaby's at it again, someone muttered. Another voice followed with a smirk. She'll be sobbing over the coffee maker next. Ava didn't turn around. She simply finished cleaning her weapon and headed straight for the range. 15 rounds, 15 impacts, 75 meters. No hesitation, no wasted breath. The paper target disintegrated into fragments under her precision. When she lowered her carbine, the others were already gone. No one clapped. No one saw the shredded remains. All they'd remember were her tears. While they slept, she analyzed. While they joked, she calculated. While they questioned her resolve, she turned empathy into strategy. 3 weeks earlier, she'd started noticing what others ignored, the small signs that never made it into reports. Birds no longer nested near the northern ridge. Patrols came back pale, silent, eyes wide as if something had followed them home. Even the wind carried an alien sound, metal scraping stone at 3 a.m. Ava began charting it all in her notebook. Not topography, not troop movement, emotion. She mapped where fear spiked, where confidence cracked, where silence lingered too long. Ink veins of red and black converged over one place labeled Raven's Hollow Pass. It wasn't just terrain, it was intuition on paper. She called it her empathy grid, a map predicting human reaction before thought could catch up. One night, Staff Sergeant Reyes found her seated on the mess hall steps, sketching beneath a dim flashlight. He crouched beside her, quiet, eyes scanning her work. After a pause, he pointed to one corner. "You missed a crosswind channel there," he murmured, then rose and walked off. He never mentioned it again, but Ava never forgot. He'd seen it too. He just didn't understand what he was seeing. After a pause, he tapped a spot on the edge of her drawing. "You missed a crosswind channel right here," he muttered, then straightened up and walked away into the darkness. He never brought it up again, but Ava Marlowe never forgot that moment. He had noticed it too. He just didn't realize what he was looking at. The next morning, the base shuddered under the sharp tone of an alert siren. "Attention, all personnel. Enemy movement detected." Increased activity along the northern ridge. Estimated contact window, 72 hours. Outside, soldiers rushed across the compound, tossing orders, stacking crates, checking comms gear. Ava didn't move. A chill rippled through her chest. That was the same ridge she'd circled 3 weeks before, the one even the birds had abandoned. She bolted to her quarters, snatched her notebook, and flipped to the page with her empathy grid. The pattern glared up at her. The ridge, the funnel, every line led to the same truth. An ambush waiting to trap them in the narrow corridor of Raven's Hollow Pass. A flawless kill funnel. She didn't hesitate. Helmet on, notebook in hand, she stormed toward the command post. Inside, Major Grant Harlan stood with his arms crossed, issuing orders to 2 lieutenants. He looked up when she entered, brow tight. "Marlowe, make it quick." "Sir, we're walking into a trap," she said, her voice steady but urgent. "Raven's Hollow Pass is the low ground, perfect for a crossfire. If they strike from the north ridge, they'll drive us straight south into it." Harlan blinked slowly. "And where exactly did you get that intelligence?" "Observation," she replied firmly. "Patterns. I've tracked their shifts for weeks." He sighed, waving her off. "Patterns? You're logistics, not recon, not command. Stay in your lane, Marlowe." Her pulse thundered in her ears. "Sir, if I'm right—" "That's an order," he barked, turning back to his map table. "We'll handle it." The word lane echoed in her mind long after she stepped outside. Lane, box, label, different words for the same cage she'd been trying to break since the first day she arrived. Beyond the hills, the desert wind groaned, a low metallic drag across rock that vibrated through her bones. Something was moving out there. Something preparing. Ava stood motionless on the walkway as the base lights flickered off her armor. Others hurried past, too busy to notice her stillness. Her gaze fixed on the glowing ridge in the north. "They won't listen," she whispered. She closed the notebook, slid it into her pack, and tightened the strap across her chest. "Then I'll be ready." The ground trembled under her boots, distant but real. The first mortar hit at 0642. The explosion tore through the western wall, shaking the entire compound like a beast awakening. Windows shattered, sandbags burst, and the dawn turned gray with smoke. Ava Marlowe dove for cover behind a pile of crates, ears ringing, heart hammering louder than the sirens that screamed around her. When she lifted her head, she saw fire rolling through the motor pool, vehicles twisted and burning in the chaos. Trucks writhed in the blast. Weapons littered the gravel ground. Ava snatched her rifle, chambered around, and ran through the chaos. The air tasted of dust and fuel. Around her, soldiers barked orders, half panic, half habit. Inside the command post, voices stacked into a storm. Major Grant Harlan stood above the map table, shouting over the static. "Evac protocol! Charlie, move non-combatants south! Alpha and Delta, hold the pass!" Ava crashed through the doorway, chest heaving. "Sir, you can't push them south. It's a funnel." Harlan didn't glance up. "Not now, Marlowe." "They're herding us into the corridor," she pushed. "You'll be walking them straight into a kill zone." "Unless you've got drone footage, that's guessing," he snapped. "I'm reading the pattern," she shot back. "Everything they've done points there." Before he could answer, the side door slammed. Staff Sergeant Reyes stumbled in, blood soaking his shoulder. "They breached the east gate," he gasped. 20, maybe 30, moving hard. Ava caught him as he would have fallen. His hand clung to her sleeve, hot with blood. "You were right," he rasped. "Should have said something sooner." Medics pulled him into the haze. The room paused. Even the radio noise thinned. Ava faced Harlan. "Sir," she said softly. "I'll stay." Harlan frowned. "What?" "I'll hold the base. Reinforcements ETA, 6 hours, 40 minutes. I'll buy time." He stared like she'd lost it. "You can't stop 90 men alone." "I don't plan to stop them," she replied. "I plan to make them believe they're already losing." For a long beat, Harlan said nothing. Then he stepped aside. No salute, no order, just permission. Outside, the ground shuddered from another blast. A supply truck erupted, a black column of smoke climbing over the ridge. Ava slung her rifle, cinched her vest, and ran for the northern tower. By the time she scrambled into position, the sun was barely up. Through the scope, dark shapes fanned along the ridge, disciplined, spaced, moving with purpose. Not raiders, not amateurs. She slipped back into cover, yanked open her pack, and laid out her kit. 9 firing positions, each stocked with water, ammo, and a decoy. Signs of life scattered, empty energy cans, boot prints in mixed sizes, a half-eaten ration bar. Then the speakers wired to old comm units, each looping a different voice. Alpha, flank right. Bravo, cover the ridge. Sniper team, hold fire until my mark. She'd recorded those lines weeks ago on a cheap voice modulator smuggled from the supply depot. Now they would wash across the valley like a full platoon. From her first perch, Ava peered through the crosshairs and took aim. The world focused into motion and sound. Shadows on the ridge, flashes of metal, figures slipping between rocks. She fired once. The lead scout went down. The second wave stalled, unsure. Return fire answered, wild, scattered, confused about her location, which was precisely the effect she wanted. She shifted position. 10 seconds later, another shot cracked from the west bunker. Different cadence, different echo. The illusion was working. For the next hour, Black Ridge Outpost felt deserted but haunted. Muzzle flashes blinked from random corners, radios spat false orders, footprints appeared and then vanished across sandbags. Ava didn't stay in one place more than 2 minutes. The enemy probed forward, tested, then pulled back, trying to make sense of chaos that wasn't real. Every second they hesitated kept another convoy truck alive. Between bursts, she leaned against concrete and breathed, sweat stinging her eyes, the blast heat crawling through her kit like a fever. She checked her watch. 2 hours since the first mortar. 6 to go, muscles shaking, focus sharpening. From the ridge came enemy voices over static. Still no visual, multiple shooters, unknown strength. She almost smiled. Down below, the last evac rolled out with Harlan leading. Reyes, bandaged, rode in the back of a truck. Engines faded into the distance, leaving wind and gunfire. For the first time since dawn, Black Ridge was quiet again. Just Ava and the echo of her plan. She traced the red ink on her map where lines crossed over Raven's Hollow Pass and murmured, 92 of you, 1 of me. A small grin. She ripped another mag from her belt, a faint smirk touching her mouth. Let's see who runs out of bullets first. Hour 3. Ava Marlowe crouched behind the northern barricade, sweat cutting streaks through the dust on her face as her hands moved on instinct. Reload, reposition, breathe. Each shot rang from a new angle, every echo placed to mislead. Through her scope, the ridge flashed with muzzle fire. She'd counted 80-plus hostiles now, broken into small teams, but their cadence was uneven, unsure. They believed they were surrounded, and the deception worked better than she dared hope. 10 firing stations, 10 different rhythms, slow pairs, sharp bursts, wild volleys, each round telling the tale of a ghost soldier. Black Ridge Outpost had become a stage and she, the lone actor. By hour 4, the enemy stopped spraying and began to creep forward in silence, probing with discipline. Their spotters swept with IR scopes, hunting for heat. Ava dropped beneath a cracked wall, heart battering her chest, when her earpiece picked up chatter on a frequency that wasn't hers. Foxtrot lead. Analysis confirms single shooter. Rotating positions. Decoy audio. Her blood ran cold. They'd figured it out faster than she expected. For a beat, panic clawed at her. One mistake away from collapse. Then she breathed and steadied. Switching channels, she keyed the modulator, dropped her voice an octave, added static, and whispered into the mic. East flank collapsing. Reyes bleeding out. Request immediate evac. We're losing ground. She waited on the enemy line. A voice replied, Copy that. Confirmed. They're breaking. Push forward. Perfect. They'd swallowed the bait. Greed drowned caution. From her crawl space beneath the central yard, she watched them pour downhill. 30, maybe more, charging through smoke in tight formation, fast and reckless. She tripped the pulley. A dummy silhouette, a uniform stuffed with sandbags, jerked upright in the haze, and the attackers opened fire. Muzzle flashes painting the smoke red. Ava smiled and squeezed off 4 rounds. 1, 2, 3, 4 fell before the rest realized the trap. The ridge burst into chaos. Snipers, multiple shooters, a scream in accented English, and Ava shifted positions as bullets shredded the wall overhead. They weren't fighting an army. They were fighting their own fear. She dashed to the next nest, boots skidding over debris, grit and echoes thick in the air, explosions blurring into a single continuous roar. Her barrel smoked hot. She racked the bolt, swapped mags, and kept moving. Exhaustion clawed at her limbs, but she ignored it. Hour 5 bled into 6, and her fingers were raw from the constant reloads. Her throat burned from smoke and the strain of barking fake orders through the radio. Then came the click. The rifle jammed. Her stomach lurched. She slammed the buttstock against the ground, tapped the magazine, racked the bolt. Nothing. Footsteps echoed down the corridor behind her. Close. Fast. She dropped the rifle and drew her sidearm in a single fluid motion. A shadow filled the doorway. She fired twice, center mass. The figure collapsed, his weapon clattering across the floor. She didn't look, didn't think, just moved. Reflex kept her alive. She snatched a spare mag, reloaded the rifle, and climbed into a new nest above the depot, breath ragged but steady. Outside, the wind shifted and pressure dropped. Through her earpiece came faint enemy chatter. Air support inbound. Repeat, they've got air support coming. Her lips curved into a grim smile. She'd broadcast that lie 20 minutes earlier, and they'd bought it. Below, panic spread like wildfire. Units broke formation, dragging their wounded, shouting over conflicting orders. Ava keyed her mic again. Alpha flank secure. Bravo advancing. Hold the line. Her voice echoed through the loudspeakers she'd wired around the base. To the ridge, it must have sounded like command had returned, like reinforcements were already inside the wire. The illusion was perfect. Minutes later, the withdrawal began. 5, then 15, then all of them, leaving weapons, supplies, and silence behind. The field that burned all morning finally stilled. Ava sank beside the sandbags, her rifle slipping from her grip, clattering onto the dirt. Her lungs heaved, her whole body trembling. For the first time in 8 hours, she whispered, barely audible, I can breathe. Her eyes stung, a single tear sliding down her soot-streaked cheek. Not fear, not weakness, just release. She raised her radio one last time. Blackridge secure. Only static answered. Then quiet. Defender count. 1. By the time the Blackhawks appeared, the outpost was nothing but smoke and silence. Ash drifted through the air like gray snow. Shell casings glittered under the sun. The first helicopter circled low, its rotor wash scattering dust and torn papers. Ava Marlowe sat slumped against a wall near the central yard, rifle across her lap, head tilted slightly, listening to something only she could hear. When the skids touched down, soldiers spilled out, medics, recon, security, sweeping the courtyard for survivors. They found just one. A medic froze mid-step. "Sir," he whispered into comms, "we've got someone." Major Grant Harlan stepped off the Osprey, helmet under one arm, eyes scanning the wreckage, bodies under tarps, walls torn open by fire. And at the center of it all, a lone figure sitting in the dust, motionless but alive. He approached slowly, boots crunching across the gravel. Ava looked up, eyes half-shaded beneath a smear of soot. She didn't rise. She didn't salute. For a long moment, silence ruled the air, thick, heavy, sacred. Even the medics stood frozen, afraid to break it. Then Major Grant Harlan stopped 3 feet away and removed his helmet. "I was wrong," he said quietly. Ava's reply was barely more than breath. "It's all right, sir, as long as you're listening now." He nodded once, gaze dropping to the rifle still warm in her hands. Behind him, a soldier whispered to another, voice trembling, "She's the one who held it." No cheer followed, only the kind of silence that weighs more than applause. When they lifted her onto the stretcher, she didn't fight it. Her body shook, but her eyes stayed fixed on the ridge beyond the ruins. Even then, she looked as if she were still mapping echoes no one else could hear. 6 months later, Fort Valor Tactical Academy, Nevada. Lecture Hall 3 overflowed with cadets sitting rigid and wordless as Ava Marlowe stepped to the podium. Her hair was shorter now, her uniform crisp. On the table lay a single battered notebook, stained with dirt, sweat, and blood. She opened it carefully, pages full of looping lines and coded marks. "They called me crybaby," she began, "because I cried when soldiers died. Because I felt too much." Her voice was steady, low, almost tender. "What they never understood," she said, lifting her eyes to the young officers, "is that empathy isn't weakness. It's intelligence. It's awareness. It's how you stay alive." Behind her, a projection glowed faint blue. Her empathy grid rebuilt digitally, showing Blackridge's ridges, motion paths, and emotional topography. Every circle and arrow represented hesitation, fear, or pride. "I didn't just see the battlefield," she said softly. "I felt it. I tracked morale the way others tracked wind direction. That's how I survived." A hand rose from the back row. "Ma'am," a cadet asked, "what made you stay when everyone else stopped believing in you?" Ava paused, fingers resting on the notebook. "I almost didn't," she confessed. "I almost burned this notebook, walked away, let it fade." The room went still. Even the hum of the projector seemed to wait. She turned the notebook sideways, and a single bent rifle casing slid out, striking the podium with a soft, metallic clink. "This jammed round," she said, "was from that morning, the one that almost ended everything. I kept it," she said quietly, "because it reminds me what hesitation costs." Her gaze swept the room once more. "If you see the truth and stay silent, you become the next blind spot." No one dared to speak. Her words hung in the air like smoke after a blast. Even the instructors at the back shifted uneasily, realizing they were witnessing doctrine rewrite itself in real time. Ava Marlowe closed the notebook and released a slow breath. Her final line came like a vow, A cold mind pulls the trigger. A burning heart wins the right fight. The applause started softly, then swelled, but she lifted a hand to stop it. "This isn't about applause," she said. "It's about learning to listen before the shooting starts." When the lecture ended, the cadets filed out in silence. Ava stayed behind, standing by the window overlooking the Nevada desert. The sun was sinking, the same shade of gold as the morning she'd survived Black Ridge Outpost. Her phone buzzed on the table. No name, no number, just a message. Raven's Hollow wasn't the last. Grid 34.7 degrees north, 111.2 degrees west. They're coming again, and this time they know about you. She stared at the glowing screen, the light reflecting in her eyes. Then she smiled. Small, calm, certain. "Page 2, she whispered. The wind outside caught the edge of her notebook, flipping the last page open. A new map was already half drawn. The story wasn't finished. If you enjoyed this story, consider supporting Old Bill's Tales, so we can bring more stories like this to life. Now, click the video on screen to hear another tale of courage, sacrifice, and the kind of choice that makes you question everything you thought you knew about duty and justice.